Hi, everybody, and welcome to our virtual career panel. My name is Nikki Wooten. I'm a program manager for the Center for Growing Talent and happy to have you guys here joining us today to learn a little bit more about the produce industry and hear from our fantastic panelists about their experiences. Throughout this panel, we'd love to hear any questions that you may have. So at any moment, please feel free to enter your question into the Q&A panel and we will get to it as we can. In the event we don't get through all the questions, we will follow up with you afterwards. So just know that if we're not able to answer it directly during our time here today, we will follow up with you after. So let's go ahead and jump right into it and get started with our panelists. To start, why don't we have all of our panelists introduce themselves? So Jim, I'm seeing you right now. Would you mind starting and just introducing your name, title, company, and a brief background about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, Jim Hancock. I'm with Sam's Club. I'm the DMM Vice President over the Produce and Floral area. Been with the company 25 years, and with the exception of about 2 or 3 of those, all of them have been around produce and fresh food. So this is probably my 4th or 5th time to participate in the career panel, and I'm excited to be here today. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Nancy, would you like to go next?
Sure, thanks, Nikki. I'm Nancy Pickersgill. I am in the marketing department, running all the events for Mastronardi Produce. I stumbled into the produce industry. It wasn't a typical path. Prior to this, I did a lot of events, more hospitality driven with some other companies like working with the NFL and Formula One. So some larger professional, strong brands. And then about 13 years ago, I stumbled into the produce industry and never realized what a passionate group of people were here, and with a love for health conscious people and plant-based diet, I think I found the perfect career.
Thank you, Nancy. Howard, how about you?
Well, good afternoon. My name is Howard Nager. I am the Vice President of Business Development and Marketing for Progressive Produce. We are headquartered in Los Angeles. I am currently participating from Visalia, California, which is in the heart of citrus and grapes in the San Joaquin Valley, about halfway between Los Angeles and Fresno. I have been in the produce industry almost 40 years. And have come a long way from bagging groceries and chasing down shopping carts in the parking lot when I first started out back when I was 16 years old. So a tremendous amount of great friendships, both professional and personal friendships along the way, and I'm very happy to be here this afternoon.
Thank you, Howard. And Sarah?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Quackenbush. I'm an account manager with North Bay Produce, based in Northwest Michigan in Traverse City. I've been with North Bay 7 years, and before that, I was with Wegmans Food Markets as a produce buyer for 2 years.
Thank you. So I know you all kind of touched on kind of your path to get to your current job, but just something I want to point out for our attendees here. How many of you actually went to school thinking you were going to go in produce? So Sarah, I still see you, so I'm going to start with you here.
So I graduated from Michigan State, which is an agricultural school. But when I first went away to school, I thought I wanted to be in the hospitality industry. And then I took a class about just farm management, just kind of because I thought it sounded interesting, and got really interested in agriculture, and kind of just by chance ended up going to the big industry convention, the PMA Fresh Summit, and got an internship out of it, and then kind of just went from there. So no, I didn't start out thinking I was going to go into the produce industry, but I'm glad it worked out that way.
Nancy, would you like to go next?
Sure. As I said, I had no indication at all I was going into the produce industry. I as well was going more for hospitality, event planning, and I moved to an area that has an abundance of greenhouse companies, facilities, distribution, and I was amazed at the like just the opportunities. So yeah, no idea.
Perfect. And Jim?
Yeah, so the produce totally happened by accident. I had a friend who worked at Sam's Club and said, hey, they're hiring in the produce department. You should come apply. And that's what I did. That was the first year after I graduated high school. It was only supposed to be a part-time job to get me through university, where I was going to be an accountant. And my plan was to get my CPA and go to work for one of the big 8 accounting firms. And that didn't work out at all. I took the first couple of accounting classes and I said, I don't actually think I like accounting. I don't know where this plan came from, but I was liking produce and I was liking Sam's Club, and that's what it turned into, a career that I never saw coming. So I'm really, really happy to be part of it. Glad it worked out the way it did.
And Howard, you mentioned that you started at 16. What really captured you into staying in produce?
Well, the reason I started in the grocery store at 16 was my next door neighbor was the store manager. So he and my parents kind of colluded together to make sure that I had a job. So all through high school, all through college, working in the grocery store, in all the different departments, meat department, dairy department, but produce department was something that I really thoroughly enjoyed. So after going to business school back in Boston, all my friends were starting to get jobs in finance and accounting and sales and all the things that marketing, things that we were learning in business school. And I decided I really wasn't quite ready for a full-time job yet. And I was going to kind of kick back over the summer and continue working in the grocery store. And lo and behold, about a month later, I got an opportunity to interview with Dole. And that kind of started my career in the produce industry, working for a local sales office in Boston for Dole Fresh Fruit. And that's how it all kind of got into the produce industry.
Now, I mean, something we hear often with talking to different industry members is, you know, you kind of fall into the produce industry. But one thing I recognize is that people really don't leave. So let's talk a little bit about why that is. What is one of the great things and the rewards of working in this industry? And Howard, I can still see you, so I'm going to go right back to you.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I think Nancy mentioned it. I can remember traveling and you're on an airplane and inevitably you strike up a conversation with the person next to you. And once you tell them that you work in the produce industry, you know, a big smile comes on their face, because it certainly is a healthy, good for you type product to be working for. In addition, as we talked about, you're developing really lifelong friendships, both professionally as well as personally. So people in the produce industry, I think we all share a lot of common traits and personalities. So we tend to all get along. And we can't forget about those buzzwords of sustainability and eco-friendly and recyclability, all those types of things where really come into play in the produce industry. So you feel good about what you're doing while you're doing it.
That is very true. How can you not feel good about produce and selling a healthy product? And Nancy, what are some of the rewards for you?
I think that a lot of what Howard says, but also working within an industry that has so many passionate and dedicated people, but also it's fast paced. And I've always liked that kind of like no 2 days are the same. There's always change. You know, it's also a stable industry. It's not going anywhere. I think that in this past year, we really recognize that even more. There's just so many opportunities that, you know, as it continues to grow and we've changed so many things. I mean, I've been in the industry for, I say only 13 years because so many people have been in, you know, since you know, grown up in the industry or been, you know, own farms and things like that. So they really have their roots in the industry. But for the past 13 years, I mean, there's so much change, and it just continues to grow and evolve, and just so many options to grow within.
Yeah, and Jim, do you have any rewards that you'd point out that differ from Howard or Nancy?
I mean, all of those are great. I agree with Nancy that the trend is right. People are trying to live healthier, so that makes us relevant. Also agree with Howard is that we're doing something good for people. You know, eat produce, you feel better. You know, that's the whole idea. In addition to that, the fast pace, I love the fact that days go by fast, and it's lots of decisions that one right after another, and no 2 days are the same. So I totally agree with that as well. I also like the fact that we're competing. You know, I like to win. I love to come in every day and see if my sales are up, and then get the market share reports, and am I winning or losing, and all of that keeps it exciting and engaging for me. And those would just be a few that I would mention.
And Sarah, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just kind of echoing everybody else. My favorite part of the day is talking to my customers and talking to other people in the industry. I really enjoy the relationships that I've formed. And I've been in the industry 9 years, which compared to everybody else is actually a pretty short time. So, you know, you go to trade shows, people have been there 20, 30, 40 years. But even only at 9 years, you know, you go to industry events and I still feel like I see tons of people I know, and it's great to catch up with everybody. So I really enjoy that aspect of it. And the other thing too, and Nancy kind of touched on this, is people need to eat. So it's kind of an industry that I know that there will always be jobs and always be opportunities in, because people always want fruits and vegetables. So that's kind of comforting too.
Yeah, and kind of going back to what you all have talked about with this fast-paced industry, no 2 days really being the same. I was hoping we could elaborate a little bit more on that. I mean, some people think produce and they're just thinking their grocery store and they see the variety that's in that store, but there's a lack of real understanding behind everything that goes into it. So I'm going to go back to Jim, just because you're the one that talked about no 2 days being the same. And can you elaborate more about what your day looks like and how that changes day to day?
Yeah, I mean, the day definitely starts with looking at sales, right, to see how things are going, what is selling, what isn't. It also goes looking at inventory. What do I own? What's on the way? Those are definitely how I start the day. From there, it's making decisions that often are reacting to a lot of that. I mean, that's part of the day to day. I also do plenty of work that's, you know, a couple of years out. And so we work hard on what do we want produce to look like at Sam's Club in 3 years from now and 5 years from now, and what technology do we need to bring in to make sure that we remain relevant in that time frame. So those would be some of the things, and it's lots of people. I mean, that I work with too. It's not just the group of buyers work for me. I have 11 folks on my team, but I've also got 20 replenishment managers, and I've got 18 distribution centers that all are full of people that do fulfillment and do quality assurance, and then we have people that are in the field that are looking at crops and sending us feedback. And so there's plenty of inputs and people to work with, and that's part of what keeps it fresh. Also, lots of folks to work with. Yeah.
Thank you, Jim. And Howard, can you talk a little bit about your day and what makes it so different and varying each day?
Well, yeah, there's so many different facets to this business. As Jim had mentioned, the first thing of looking at sales, from being a grower shipper, we're obviously trying to balance products in the field, you know, things that are touched and impacted by Mother Nature. So, you know, a little bit of rain yesterday, what did that do to the crop? Or it's been a heat wave, so how has that impacted our supply? But in a given day, I might interface and work with our marketing department on package design or new products, working with our folks on strategic planning and budgeting and forecasting, you know, working with our merchandising or sales team on promotional planning or customer pricing or customer interfacing or trade shows. There's many different elements to a typical day. And you're right, it goes very quickly. But these are all things that, even though if you're an accountant or you're somebody in food safety, your business and your part of the business is touching many different things beyond just doing a spreadsheet or handling a certification.
Yeah. And so Nancy, do you want to touch on from your perspective when it comes to more the event side of it? How is your day affected and changed based off, I mean, maybe there's an event coming up, maybe you're preparing, maybe there's something big going on in the industry, so on.
Yeah, well, this year has definitely been a challenge on the event side, considering there came to a screaming halt this year. But being within the marketing department, we were lucky enough to be able to, kind of jump around. And I mean, my standard response is there's never 2 days that are alike, and your day is never going to be what it started off to be. As everyone else, you start off with lists, and then you start going through emails and communicating with other departments. That is very important to keep those lines open, because your reactions throughout the day might be completely different than what you ever thought, with sales, with procurement, with any departments within, we touch everything. But this year in particular, we did a lot of work within our HR department in communications, which was really important on the well-being of everybody going through this pandemic. So we took on a lot of that, which was really different, but a learning experience to say, there are so many different pieces to the puzzle in this industry, whether it be the internal, external, industry-wide. So I mean, although the virtual events, I mean, that was a big learning curve. I mean, who would have thought we would be sitting here like this talking to each other? So I mean, it just shows how we can adapt, and we do. I mean, it's one of the things I love about this industry, is that everybody still wants to be communicating with each other and staying strong and working together.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Nancy, because of the working together part. I know, Jim, you talked about the love that you have for the industry because of the competitiveness that it adds to it. But I was hoping you guys could all touch on that fact that many of you have mentioned the relationships in this industry. And so you hear the relationships are strong, but it's very competitive. Can you guys touch on that aspect of it and how the relationships, even though you're competitors, work within this industry? And Sarah, I'm going to start with you for this question.
Well, we all do compete, obviously, but ultimately we all have the same goal, and that's to increase consumption and have more people buying more fruits and vegetables. So really, we're all working towards the same goal, and we all recognize that in each other. So like I said, even though we're competing and, we want to sell more than another company, ultimately we're working towards the same goal. So it really helps everybody cooperate when we need to and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I'll just open up to our other panelists. Did anybody else want to add on to that?
Sarah had the right answer. Even the Center for Growing Talent. I mean, I'm in retail, and there's 4 or 5 other retailers on the board, but we all have the same goal. We need more people, more smart people in the produce industry, so we can continue to advance and grow with good people. That's what we need. Yeah.
Go ahead, Howard.
Well, I think also too is we all have an appreciation of what everybody else is doing. We're all going through very similar circumstances. The pandemic, Mother Nature impacts us. All these types of things that are out of our control impact us. And I think that appreciation that we have for our competitors comes through in the relationships that, after a hard negotiation you could still be friends with somebody and still have an understanding, knowing what they're going through and what they're dealing with. So I think that's very important, is that appreciation and knowledge that we're all in this together.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Howard. I know going on a tour of a facility before, hearing a company talk about just as much as your competitors, you're also relying on each other sometimes. So maybe your crop didn't go as well. So maybe you have to buy from a competitor that you wouldn't normally. And I just thought that was so interesting. The fact that, I mean, you are competing on a regular basis in terms of the commodities and everything. But really that one push comes to shove, you're really working together, the bigger picture, really feeding that healthier world and coming together to do so. Jim, I love your point talking about the board and the fact that you have competitors that are on this board, but we're all able to come together and have these big conversations to make sure we're improving processes and just driving the industry forward overall. So Howard, you brought up a big subject that I know is something we've all dealt with over the past year, talking about the pandemic and the effects of that. And I wanted to talk more about that and just really on the effects that it had on this industry, both good and bad. I mean, we know things shut down and that causes harm, but knowing you're feeding people also offers opportunities. So Howard, can you start and speak a little bit more towards that and the opportunities that we had in this past year because of it?
Sure. Well, Progressive Produce, we were deemed an essential company. We have been open since day one. Our biggest items are potatoes and onions. So during the pandemic, those were very big items. We also sell a lot of items that might be called discretionary items that weren't on the top of somebody's list, but still are included there as well. It's been a challenge in terms of technology. As we said this morning, I still forget to unmute myself after I don't know how many Zoom conversations that we've had. I do have the ability to go back and forth between our office in LA and our citrus office that I'm in here now in Visalia. So almost feels like I am traveling, which I've done my entire career in getting out. I think the community that this pandemic has built together, the community of all of our workers working together to make sure everybody stays healthy, their families stay healthy, and we continue to be able to provide, the what's good and what's healthy to everybody is paramount. So it's extremely important. So I think all in all, as it could have been a lot worse, and I think we have persevered, and everybody has really risen to the challenge that this past year has given to us.
Perfect. And Jim, how about from your perspective? What opportunities have really arisen this year for you?
Well, there's been quite a few. I mean, when restaurants close, people are eating at home, which means they buy more in retail stores. And clubs have specifically won from that because members are buying more, like they're pantry loading and loading up their fridge and freezer. So we've layered on like a tremendous amount of new members, picked up new customers this past year. And so that's been really good. We're gaining market share, sales are growing. And so that all those things you would say, hey, we're winning. And it feels like we are, but there creates a lot of challenges too. Like we didn't know we were going to have so many more new members, and our distribution system now is being challenged. Like it's being stressed. We're working near capacity in a lot of them. So we're having to put together plans for what does the future look like to maintain that. We need more associates working in the clubs now, to keep up with this volume. We need more people working in the distribution centers, and Howard's talking about it's even like the growers that, we need more, And so that's the opportunity. We need more trucks on the road and all of these things. And so it's a good problem to have. It's still the things that we're up against right now to keep up with the new demand. And the good news is I worry sometimes when I watch the news and everybody's talking about social distance and mask, and I agree with all those things, but I also agree you have to stay healthy if you're worried about your immune system. And one of the ways you do that is you eat more produce, and you get good sleep, and you try to stay away from stress. And I'm happy to see that, like, America is doing some of that. We're selling more produce, and it tells me that, gives me a little faith that people are doing more than just worrying about staying away and putting on a mask, even though I know those are important.
Yeah, it's always nice to look at the upside of some of these things. I'm glad you point out that even with the opportunities that you've seen with Sales Club, there have been some challenges in terms of distribution and that sort of thing. And Sarah, I'm going to turn it to you. From your point of view, what have you seen as a challenge or an opportunity throughout this time?
Well, certainly I agree with Jim. There have been some challenges just adjusting to new business or unexpected business, you could say. But something that we've done at North Bay that was different this year is, typically produce that we would have sold to restaurant suppliers wasn't going there. So we did have some additional supply this year that we were able to divert to government contracts that supply the food banks. Obviously, there's a lot more demand for food banks this year with everything going on. So that was a new opportunity for us that we were really grateful for, and really grateful to be able to help with the food banks as well.
No, and that's wonderful. I mean, I love when you see articles coming out about those kind of things. And again, taking something that is a hard situation for everybody and really turning the good out of it. And Jim, you talking about healthy eating and really seeing the US expand on that, talking about the opportunities with it is great. We do have a question for one of our attendees right now, talking about what skills are needed in this industry. So I want to start with that question, but also want you guys to think about, as things have changed over this past year, have those skills adapted? So Nancy, I'm going to start with you, and what skills you see that are needed for this to work in this industry.
Patience. Just even through some of the opportunities that opened up, some of the skills that are needed, or that would be great. I think like young people in the industry is something that we need to keep up with a lot of trends, seeing a lot of opportunities to shifting to social media and being able to talk directly to our consumers and educate on different brands, different produce, what to do, usage of products. And I think the like other skills would be to have the flexibility and like adaptability to, because it is fast paced, as we said, and constantly changing. So being able to think quickly, react, and move fast.
Yes, definitely all key skills, and this flexibility is definitely one of them. And Howard, what about from your point of view? What skills do you think are needed for this industry?
Wow, a lot. Passionate about what you do. You got to have passion. I think we all see that in what we're talking about. You need to have good communication skills, both written communication, oral communication, verbally. Be able to multitask. Be self-motivated. Not necessarily having to have somebody constantly tell you what it is that you have to do. You wake up in the morning, you're ready to go. If you're going to do something, do it right and do it well. These are all a lot of traits that we all share. I would say most people in the produce industry are type A. There are some exceptions that succeed, but for the most part, we all feel like we can do anything we want to do. So those are some of the skills that I think that are important today, to be a good listener. Listen to what's going on before jumping in, especially as you come into an industry that you don't really know too much about. Take it all in before you decide what it is that you need to do.
All very valuable skills. I think a lot of what you named, Howard, really goes to the fact that this is such a big relationship industry. So communication, having that, especially the relationships with just your accounts, with others in the industry, your competitors, everything like that. And Sarah and Jim, did either of you have any skills that you wanted to add on to?
I think they got most of them. I would just, what would I say? I mean, I think the deal about making decisions fast probably can't be understated. If you're somebody who likes to think about things and really ponder on them, and you need a few days to work through it, it's going to be tough in produce because it does move that fast. I will say, while most of us, probably the ones participating in this call, are type A, to Howard's point, I do have quite a few people on my team in replenishment who they're into the numbers and forecasting, and you couldn't get them to show up to a team bonding meeting if you had to, because they don't like being around people, but they're very good at what they do in that role. And so there are opportunities for everybody. And it does help to know numbers. Having a strong sense of financial acumen will definitely help you succeed in these roles.
Yeah, now I'm glad you pointed that out, Jim, because I definitely see, especially as I'm working with students in particular that are more on the engineering side, more that data. I can't speak right now. The data analytics side, I'm trying to combine words. You definitely see different personalities, and there really are a lot of opportunities based off of your interests and whatnot. And this really is a diverse industry. But Howard, you're absolutely right. When you're at an event, you're talking relationships, type A, those go-getters, everything. So glad that was pointed out as well. And so thinking of these skills, are there any skills that you think are more relevant now because of what you've seen in the past year, or skills that you think we need more of right now because of just kind of the transformation we went through in this past year? I mean, I always joke, it feels like this past year was 5 years with the amount of innovation that's come out of it, and adjustment and the pivoting we've all done, that famous word we all love. Does anybody have any skills they'd like to add on, or skills that you see are future needed in this industry?
I would say that the flexibility piece is key. Even before the pandemic, like Howard mentioned earlier, we're dealing with Mother Nature. So you have to be able to roll with the punches and adapt, be able to problem solve when things come up and make the right decision. But I think even more so moving forward, being able to be flexible and understand that things are changing and we're going to have to work from different kind of environments. We won't necessarily be in office settings going forward. So just being able to be flexible and, like I said, roll with the punches, that's important.
And one thing I always love to point out, and especially as I think Nancy, you and I have joked about this before, with this new generation, their knowledge in terms of, because you mentioned social media, their knowledge in terms of new social media that's out there that helps you get in front of consumers or customers in general. I mean, I laugh because my team talks about TikTok, and we need to get in front of TikTok. And I might be on the younger side of my team, and that's still something that's so unfamiliar to me and actually scares me to think of trying to create a TikTok video. But that's something that this next generation coming up and coming into this workforce, they have those skills. It's so natural to them and can really become an asset in this industry. And because I mentioned that, I just wanted to see if there's any other things like that you see are of value from this next generation. And Jim, I see you're unmuted, so I'm going to go with you in case you have something you wanted to add.
Yeah, I was just going to throw in probably data science is growing in a really fast way. Anything related to automation or AI is really big right now. Those would be trending things that are coming up. But Nikki, I think you would be a TikTok star with a little bit of effort. I think you could do that. My daughter's working on it. I know that for sure. My son, kind of, yeah.
Thank you, Jim, but I'm definitely more of the I'll watch the videos versus try to create them. There's so many innovative things, and I've seen some things related to consumer products and things that amaze me, but definitely not my wheelhouse, but definitely something this next generation really has mastered that I think is just a great asset for them. And Nancy, I've seen you unmuted. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just, in talking through a lot of this, it's just, I think it's important to be creative and bring ideas to the table. Because we are a fast-paced industry, to bring new ideas and innovations is really important.
No, that's a great point, and something that should be pointed out to our audience. I had to laugh. I had a program a few years ago where the student was in more of that data side, and we were actually sitting in a career panel in person like this, and she started talking about how, as a project, she created a system that took care of expiration dates for everything in a fridge, and she thought nothing of it. And we're sitting there and you could see the light bulbs going off with our panelists and everybody else in the room about how that could be taken on a larger scale and those kind of things. So you saying the creativity part just really sparked that in my head to point out, something that might not seem so creative to a younger generation person might not be something that's been thought of in this industry, or even if it has, how do you implement it? And this industry really needs those creative minds to really expand on those ideas and think bigger and think futuristic. I mean, innovation is huge and that sort of thing. So just wanted to elaborate on what you were saying a little bit more, Nancy, because I think that doesn't always resonate with younger generations or in general people, because you kind of think in your own little bubble and you don't know that other people don't think that similar way. So really that creativity, and going back to what Howard, you said, the communication, and I think and the type A personality, really putting your ideas out there is a big asset in this industry. We do have another question in our Q&A chat. So it's talking about asking the question, what types of careers are in the produce industry? And I love this question. So does anybody want to start this one off?
I will, because there's just so many. I mean, 25 years with Sam's Club. I've been in operations, finance and planning. I've done replenishment, and this is actually my second go around in merchandising and buying. And every time that I've switched to a new one, it's like a brand new career starting all over again. And I haven't done all of them. I haven't talked about QC or part of the logistics or supply chain. There's so many, and that's just the retail side of it. Go upstream to where Howard is. There's so many opportunities.
Yeah, so I'm going to throw this your way, Howard, since Jim just mentioned your name.
Well, there's marketing and all the principles within marketing, public relations, advertising, web design, and social media. So, I mean, there's a whole slew of things. Food safety encompasses many different areas that our food safety people touch upon, so many different areas beyond just food safety. When you talk about working with the grower, the whole sustainable sector, whether it be working on composting issues or solar energy or whatever it may be. Sure, there's sales positions and finance and accounting positions and transportation and logistics positions, all these different things that make up the day-to-day basics of having this industry and making it work. But there's so many different areas working within companies within our industry that still impact produce. Packaging companies, all our products at some point in time go in some type of a package, whether it be a bag, whether it be a box, whether it be a clamshell or whatever it may be. So there's so many different areas that within our industry, but also so many ancillary companies and industries that work within the produce industry that are all part of us as well. So it's more than just being a salesperson or a farmer.
No, that's a great point. And I know you mentioned a lot of different possibilities, and I didn't know, Sarah and Nancy, are there any others that you wanted to point out?
No, I think Howard captured a lot of them, because there are a lot.
There really are. And one thing I want to point out too, that as different trends come through, and I mean, Howard, you mentioned sustainability, that also offers the opportunity for new job positions that haven't even been thought of yet. I mean, again, another conversation I had with an industry member was talking years ago. and it's before food safety became a thing. So they created the position for him to work in food safety for the organization to really start up that group. And now they have 10 people working in it. And I hear so often, I mean, you might have one person working in engineering right now, but they're really looking to expand with innovation and again, with trends coming up. So although it's easy to try to quantify the number of careers in produce by saying, like you said, Howard, sales, marketing, accounting, and that sort of thing. There's so many of those in-betweens. And again, I'll go back to the social media part. I mean, Nancy, you talked about social media becoming a big thing. Years ago, would you have had a social media manager on your staff? And that's becoming a big thing because that's a really big thing within marketing and really getting in front of consumers. So putting those things out. A follow-up in this question are there any internship opportunities? And I want to expand on this question a little bit further. So are there any job internship opportunities, but also how do you think a student should go about finding those opportunities? So Nancy, I still see you, so I'm going to start with you first.
We have several intern opportunities. And I think the produce industry in general does. I mean, I know that when we go to a lot of industry functions, there's, we're partnered up with a lot of students and then brought in for internships. And for us, we work with a lot of the local universities on both sides of the border, Canada and the US. And I mean, our plan whenever we have our interns is to, to hire them, to bring them on board. We're looking for that young, fresh talent that can grow with us. So, I mean, my suggestion for that is to keep working with places like PMA and the Center for Growing Talent and figure out, I mean, you guys have the relationships with a lot of people in the industry that we're more than happy to help out.
Thank you, Nancy. And Howard, did you want to comment on this?
As far as individually here at Progressive Produce, I think the pandemic has created some issues that we're dealing with as it relates to interns. But from the broader perspective, I think Nancy hit the nail on the head, is that it's easier to work with CPMA and PMA and Center for Growing Talent and help pull through some of those opportunities. I think an individual needs to think about, is there a particular area that they are looking to explore or they would like to explore? Because there is so many different segments of our business, it helps them to direct their attention and focus versus just, oh, this is a big industry, where do I start? So, take a little bit more proactive approach. What is it that you want to do? And then find that company that kind of matches up with that. And hopefully, that there'll be a right mix there.
I thought I heard Sarah say she was an intern at one time.
I don't do much with the hiring practices for North Bay, but I will echo Howard and say that there are opportunities in the industry. You just have to look for them. And I'll say, in my experiences, I kind of narrowed down where I wanted to work. I'm from Michigan and my family's all here, so I knew I wanted to work here. So I was a little bit more open-minded on what exactly I was doing in the produce industry. When I first started out, I was doing a lot of spreadsheets and reporting, which wasn't exactly what I had in mind. But I kind of stuck with it, and that was my foot in the door. Now I'm an account manager, which I'm a lot more happy doing with the relationship side and being able to talk a lot. So yeah, I would say just keep your mind a little bit open to, if you really want to get in with a specific company or in a specific region, just be a little bit open-minded about where you're starting out.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Sarah. So kind of turning this question a little bit, because it's more about really deciding, do you guys have any advice for those that maybe you don't know particularly what you want to get into in this industry, but you want to go into produce? Do you have any advice for a student that might want to try to get their toes in the sand, might not know of internships or how they can approach a company because they don't necessarily know the position they want to go to, but they're very interested in learning? Any thoughts? One thing I've heard companies talk about in the past where they've opened up internship opportunities that allow their interns, instead of being in one role, it kind of rotates them through, so they're seeing different sectors within the company so that they're learning a little bit more, but they're also finding out what they're really good at. So if the company's looking to hire, they've already found that kind of asset towards that position and that sort of thing. So that's kind of where I was going with that question, just to point out that there are those opportunities. And sorry, Howard, I see you unmuted. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, I won't say it's stuck between a rock and a hard place, but there's a opportunity with a larger company that you may tend to be able to be behind the curtain of Oz and see the breadth of what may be out there. So there's some advantages to trying to find a larger company to work for. The downside to that sometimes is their internships might be a little bit more specialized or kind of within the box versus working with a mid-size or a smaller company. Maybe you may tend to have kind of free reign to dip your foot in the water, so to speak, in many different areas in that smaller company or medium-sized company, because many people wear many different hats. So it's a comfort level as well, because so many of our businesses in produce are family-owned businesses. Sometimes that is run a little bit differently than a multinational, organization, or for that matter, a smaller retailer with 10 stores versus a national retailer with hundreds of stores. So once again, it's what your comfort level is and what it is that you really, really want to look at in doing.
Yeah, we have a really robust internship program at Walmart and Sam's that gets the students exposed to a lot. And basically the course of, half the summer, maybe a little more, it's a paid position. They get to, up until this past year was done virtually, but prior to that, they would actually come here and live in Bentonville for a while and get lots of exposure to all the executives. So it was a really good program where you could see a little bit of everything. It's not just about produce, though. You would see much more than just that. But most of those internships are done through like relationships with the universities. And so I would say stay close to your university on those types of things. Stay close to Center for Growing Talent. And one of the reasons you do Center for Growing Talent is to meet people like us on the call here right now. That's another benefit of doing that. You get access to people, and so making those connections is really important.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Oh, I was going to say a lot of what Jim said, and just when you get into those, building those relationships, and be open to the opportunities that you're faced with, like listening and learning and taking in everything that you can, because most people in the industry do want to help each other, and especially students. I mean, that's why we're here today. That's why I like to participate in a lot of things that you have going on, Nikki. It's to help people and to try and find a mentor that can help them along. It might not be somebody that you might not want to be in that industry or that field or that department that they're working in, but they can guide you and help you along.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And one thing I also wanted to mention, one of the hard things I think that the produce industry faces, and in terms of new talent, is that, because it's such a commodity heavy industry, rather than knowing company names, something that I want to point out for students is you might not be sure of the different companies in the industry, but do your research around companies that are local to your area, or even go to a grocery store, look at the labels, see the packaging, the companies that are on there, and know that a lot of our industry companies you can reach out to through LinkedIn, that sort of thing, to try to learn about opportunities, but also go to their websites. There's usually a section that has job listings or job openings. So even though it's not as easy to just know about a company in produce as it would be a Coca-Cola or any of those big companies, know that as long as you're willing to put in the effort and do the research, these companies are certainly worth it, and you can definitely find those opportunities. And again, as most of you on this panel have said, this industry is very open to show you these opportunities, to talk about those opportunities, really guide you. So don't be afraid to reach out, again, through LinkedIn or that sort of thing, and ask the questions to help figure out what direction you want to go or learn a little bit further about it. So I see we're coming to the close of the hour. So I wanted to ask you all one final question that we can leave the students with. So if there was one piece of advice you would like to share with students on this call, what would it be? And it can really be anything, but just one thing that you would really like to stick with them as they're leaving this session with us, and maybe will help them project forward within their career search or anything of that matter. So I'm going to start with you, Howard.
I think I'm going to say to them what was said to me when I first started out, and that is don't burn any bridges. This industry is too small, although it's big. Someday that person you're working with may either be your next boss or a boss down the road, or vice versa, or you be working side by side. We all enjoy establishing relationships in the networking aspects of this business. And by kind of, if you're going to leave a company and move on, that's well and good. That's great. But don't burn a bridge if you don't have to.
Great point. Especially as we talk to the relationships within this organization, even between, or within this industry, even between companies and whatnot. Jim, how about you? What would your piece of advice be?
I think I'd like to give two pieces of advice. One of them would be make sure you're also part of the interview process. Like, you're interviewing companies and future employers to make sure it aligns with you and the person you are and your values. So start with that when you're picking where do you want to be. That may be even more important than the industry you choose. But the other thing I would say is, especially to young folks that are just getting started, because I've seen this a few times now, and I was a young person once too. And you often want to step in and change the world overnight because you see the opportunities, and there are plenty of opportunities to change and make things better. It just sometimes takes a little bit of time to do that. And so don't feel like if the person you're working for is telling you that won't work, or we need to test small to get it started, that's not a defeat. It just, you can't change the world overnight, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I heard somebody mention patience earlier, and that I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Very, very great point, Jim. And Nancy, how about you?
I would say to keep talking to people and asking questions, and then listen.
I don't think that could be emphasized enough. Keep talking, build relationships, and listening, especially as we've talked to skills in this industry. I don't think you can emphasize that more. And Sarah, how about you? What's your last piece of advice?
I would say be persistent. In my position, that's a key thing, being in sales, always be persistent. You just have to wait for your opportunity. If you're looking for an internship or looking for a job, just make sure that you have everything together and, you've done your research, but be persistent, because there are opportunities and something will come up. You just got to stay with it.
That is a great point. And for all of our attendees on this webinar today, I'm going to re-emphasize basically what all of our panelists have been saying. It's about relationships. It's about persistency. It's about really going out of your way a little bit more, because this industry is worth it. So I'm going to close this with one piece of advice. I hope you as an attendee will connect with each of us in some way, shape, or form, whether that's through LinkedIn. I will also in a second put up my contact information. If you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And if it's for a specific panelist, I'm happy to guide the question their way. But we hope to continue to hear from you and see you in the future, and hope one day you will be working in this industry. But one final thank you so much to all of our panelists. I really appreciate you guys taking the time today and answering these questions and providing the guidance to hopefully the future industry members in produce. So with that, thank you all and enjoy the rest of your day.